something that seems so foreign to the way that you and I live. Let's talk this out. First of all, I want to clarify what persecution is not. And I want to clarify this is not any form of harassment. Like, you and I will be harassed and we will come under the negative attention and the negative intention of others, but it needs to be for the right reason. Jesus is describing persecution for the sake of righteousness. So that means that if you're obnoxious, or you're an idiot, or you're inept, and you are mistreated because of those things, well, that's not Jesus' problem. That's probably your fault. Right? I mean, we've all seen this like Ned Flanders caricature of what it means to be the person that follows Jesus, and they walk around with slogans on their coffee mugs and on their t-shirts, and they sort of like broadcast from the mountaintops this false message of elitism or judgment or whatever. And those people are generally mistreated. Well, it's probably not because they're of righteousness. It's probably because they're idiots. You get what I'm saying? What I'm saying is that if you are a crummy worker and you are slow and you're slow to learn, you keep making errors and you're costing your company something, and the other employees are treating you poorly because of that, don't blame Jesus. You're not being persecuted for your values or for your religious beliefs. You're being persecuted because you have poor work ethic. Or maybe you're just rude. Maybe you're just a mean person. And you feel a social pressure that people don't invite you over anymore and people don't want to hang out with you. Well, it's probably not because you declare yourself as a follower of Jesus. It's probably because you are not nice. And sometimes I think that anytime we get teased, it's like we can hide behind Jesus, and it's sort of this like coping mechanism. It's a scapegoat for us. It's like a shield to catch all these, all the negative attention we get. Let's be clear, that's not what this is talking about. What this is talking about is real pain and real sacrifice and real suffering. Think of how the original readers of Matthew's Gospel would have heard this. You may or may not know that for about the first 3 centuries, those who called themselves followers of Jesus were incredibly persecuted. I mean, with real, harmful, horrible, dangerous things. I mean, things like being thrown into the Colosseum to face wild beasts. Things like being burned alive. Things like being stoned or tortured or beaten or imprisoned. Horrible, horrible things. What happened was that Jesus had come with this revolutionary message, and people had begun to experience life in the way of his kingdom. And they really truly believed that Jesus was their one true king, and that their allegiance was first of all to the kingdom of God. And this was in direct opposition and conflict to the Roman Empire. Because, see, the Roman Empire had discovered long ago that it was a convenient form of crowd control, this idea of emperor worship. That it was an easy way to make sure everyone was on the same page and just declare that Caesar, the emperor, he's God, and everybody has to swear their allegiance to him, and it gave them some sort of crowd control. Now, in many places in the Roman Empire, it was like no big deal. It wasn't like you really believed this guy was God. You just signed the paper to like keep, the peace with the establishment. It was like, well, this is what you have to do because the man wants you to. So you just do it. Like, keep them out of your hair, sign the paper, and move on. Well, the early followers of Jesus would not compromise on this. They just wouldn't give up. People would reason with them like, hey, don't just sign it, but don't mean it. And they would say, no, truly in my heart I have no king but Jesus, and I can't bow my knee to him and declare that he is God because Jesus is my one true king. And it didn't really work. So church and state were on this inevitable collision course. And one of the two was bound to outlast the other. And Rome was not about to be undone, so they unleashed their might and their fury against this emerging church of Jesus and this way of Jesus and his kingdom. And they tried to stamp it out. And so for like 300 years, people were driven underground. They were hunted, treated like animals, like criminals because of their religious faith. This is genuine suffering. This is genuine stuff. And before you dismiss this as some relic of some, time long ago, this sort of thing still happens in many places of the world right now. In some places in communist countries or Muslim countries, it is still a great crime against the state to declare yourself a follower of Jesus. People are still being killed, they're still being tortured, they're still being beaten, they're still being imprisoned right now. They're suffering because they believe that Jesus is their Lord and they've decided to follow in his way. That's so hard to imagine while we sit here in a comfy air-conditioned room with padded seats with coffee in our hands. Man, we are so safe. We are in no danger of someone coming in with machine guns and rounding us up and with a gun to our head being asked if we really are followers of Jesus. And it's like, okay, well, because we're in no danger, like, it's so safe. It's so safe. It's like, man, we can even just miss this week. And I mean, maybe even next week, because it'll be here when we come back. We're protected and we're sheltered. I mean, right in our church, we have a man in our church named Kumar who's doing some amazing things in India. He's planting churches and God's kingdom is advancing there. And they're doing great things. And his churches are being persecuted. I'll never forget the email I got from Share the Victory, which is Kumar's organization, of a picture of what used to be a little girl. And now it just looks like charred mess. She was locked in her church when they burned it down. That happened last year. To a church that one of our DCC members started. This happens today. It's real. Why? Well, that's a great question. Why is the message of Jesus a magnet, a target for this negative attention? I mean, that's hard for us to imagine, too, because, see, we think, like, okay, well, Jesus was this teacher that came in first century Palestine, and he taught the world about respecting each other and loving each other, and just everybody get along, and he was just this homeless rabbi who walked around teaching everybody. Well, I think the problem there is with your assumption about Jesus. I mean, we like to dress Jesus up in his Oprah suit. You know? Like, he's got his little Mr. Rogers shoes and his little cardigan, and he walks around like everybody should be nice to each other. And like that, you know, that's the Jesus that we imagine, but that Jesus is a product of